Okay, well, as Tom said, I'm going to talk about the research underlying TCRP Report 123. And Tom mentioned that we had a partnership here. It was myself from Trans Systems and Matt Coogan, who's on the line, and also Tom Adler of Research Systems Group. And there were several other people on our team. Since I'm not there with you and don't want you imagining what I look like, this is me walking to work across Boston Common. I have a lovely commute. We had a distinguished panel of folks that oversaw our research. They were volunteers, and the leader was Tracy Winfrey from the city of Boulder. Today I'm going to talk about the fundamental questions that we were trying to answer in this research, how we approached it, the data we collected, and then summarize our findings, including the market segments and the policy implications. The main thing we were trying to answer was how could we encourage more people to move to transit-oriented developments? And related to that question, we wanted to understand who were the market segments that would be most likely to move, and then what it was about a TOD that would be most likely to attract them. So we know how to market and develop TODs. Now, there have been many studies that look at how people pick where to live. But our panel felt that we should try a different approach to see if we could learn something new. And we looked around and found that the predominant theory used in predicting behaviors in the health field was developed by a fellow whose name is Icek Aizen. He's a professor at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, and a very nice fellow. And in fact, he agreed to help us with our research and was most generous with his time. The motivating concepts that influence our intentions and our behaviors, according to Aizen, include three things. One is how we evaluate things rationally, like a move to a TOD. And this is the kind of study that most market research does. What are the positive aspects of a TOD? What are the negative aspects, and how do they add up? And if it's plus, maybe you choose to move to a TOD. In addition to these concepts, Aizen talks about something called the subjective norm, what others think about your decision, and that influences us. And another part is our own self-confidence, and whether or not we think we can actually accomplish the behavior, i.e. moving to a TOD. The source of data for our study came from a national survey panel called Survey Café, and this was developed by Resource Systems Group. It's a panel of over 40,000 individuals around the U.S. who've agreed to answer questions or surveys in exchange for being compensated. And they're compensated by such things as Ben & Jerry's ice cream or Vermont coffee. So they're they tend to respond in a high percentage, and they give you complete questionnaires. So it's a very high quality set of data that comes from this panel. We also used an e-panel made up of riders of New Jersey Transit because we wanted to be sure we had a sufficient number of transit users. And the way this works is participants receive an email invitation that asks them to take a survey, and then they go online and take that survey. We did not use all 40,000 people in the panel. We selected only those randomly from 11 major metropolitan areas where there's good transit service. And we also screened in another way. We asked whether they had moved in the last 2 years or intended to move in 2 years. We wanted to get people that were somewhat thinking about moving at least. And we felt that the main market for TOD is really younger people and older people, so we oversampled those that are 30 and younger and those that are over 55. We asked these respondents a lot about their attitudes towards moving to a transit-oriented development. And so I have on this slide, and I hope it's legible to everybody, the definition of a transit-oriented development that we gave to the respondents. The neighborhood has good sidewalks, a mix of housing types, shopping or restaurants within walking distance, and nearby public transit. You would be able to walk, bike, or drive to nearby shops, restaurants, pubs, and a library, but parking would be limited. You would be close to cultural events and entertainment. The neighborhood would be as safe as where you live today. Parking near your home would be limited to 1 car per household or street parking, or you could rent a garage space. So that was our concept of a TOD, and you can see that we took the issue of safety out of the equation by that, by this definition. So going back to the motivating concepts and trying to understand whether people would be interested or intend to move to a TOD, I want to start with what we learned about the subjective norm, and then self-confidence, and finally talk a little bit about the rational evaluation, the pluses and minuses of moving to a TOD. The surprising thing we learned about subjective norm was it was extremely important in the choice of location. In many of our decisions, we're not as interested in what other people think, but in this case, we are very interested. And in fact, this was corroborated by the fact that respondents' satisfaction with their current home and neighborhood correlated most strongly with what they perceived others thought about their home and neighborhood. And so this has an implication in terms of the marketing of TODs, in terms of needing to sense that a TOD is a place that others would approve of. In terms of self-confidence, the most critical item that people thought would prevent them from moving to a TOD was their fear they couldn't afford it, that's too pricey for me. And this was more critical than other items that might have been of concern. In terms of their rational evaluation of what's positive and what's negative about a TOD, the item that correlated most strongly with their intention to move to a TOD was being within walking distance of stores, restaurants, a library, and a school. And this was verified by asking this question in many different ways, and it was just a really important aspect of a TOD. Somewhat below that, but still strongly significant, was being able to take transit. And then other items that were considered very positive included being able to live with fewer cars. To some, that was important. Being able to make friends with neighbors was important, and being able to exercise by walking and biking. On the negative side, people perceived that streets would be noisier and that they would have less living